Good evening, ladies
Las
and gentlemen.
Vegas,
Welcome to Las
Nevada,
Vegas Hilton.
September
It's wonderful
3rd,
being back on the great radio field of music.
1973, 10:42 in the evening. The showroom
Good evening,
at the
ladies and
Las
gentlemen.
Vegas
Welcome to Las
Hilton
Vegas
holds
Hilton. It's wonderful
2,000
being back
people
on
when
the
it
great
is
radio field
full.
of music.
Tonight, it is full. It is always full when Elvis is performing. Has been full, night after night, for the entire residency, the way it has been full for every Elvis residency since 1969, when he first stepped back onto a Las Vegas stage after 8 years away and proved that the comeback was real and that the voice was still there and that Elvis Presley was still, whatever else had happened in the intervening years, Elvis Presley. 2,000 people. They have paid for their tickets. They have waited through the opening acts. They have sat in the particular state of anticipatory excitement that the Las Vegas showroom creates in the minutes before a headliner appears. The low hum of conversation, the clink of glasses, the collective holding of breath that happens when an audience knows something is about to begin. And now it has begun. Elvis is on stage. He has been on stage for 40 minutes. The set has moved through the familiar architecture of a Las Vegas residency, the big hits, the crowd pleasers, the songs that the audience came to hear and that Elvis has delivered with the particular professional precision of someone who has done this hundreds of times and knows exactly what works and when. What the audience does not know, cannot know, sitting in the dark with their drinks and their programs, is what the musicians on stage know. They know something is wrong tonight. They have known it since the dressing room, since the particular quality of Elvis's silence before the show. Not the usual pre-performance stillness, not the focused interior quiet of a performer preparing, but something else. The stillness of a man who has arrived at a decision. At 10:42 in the evening, it happens. To understand what happened in the Las Vegas Hilton showroom on September 3, 1973, you have to understand what Elvis was carrying into that room. By 1973, the Las Vegas residencies that had begun with such triumph in 1969 were beginning to cost something. Not commercially, the shows still sold out, the audiences still came, the money was still there. But in other ways, in the ways that don't show up on a balance sheet. Elvis had been performing in Las Vegas and touring almost continuously for 4 years. The schedule was relentless, by design, because the Colonel believed that constant visibility was the engine that kept the machine running. Elvis performed an average of more than 150 shows a year in those Vegas years. 150 times standing at a microphone in a showroom or an arena, giving the performance, being Elvis, giving the audience what they came for. 150 times being everything to everyone. The medications that had begun after his mother died in 1958 had accumulated into a dependency that his doctors managed with prescriptions. The prescriptions multiplied. Sleep became difficult. Energy required pharmaceutical assistance. Pain, the real physical pain of a body being pushed beyond what a body in his condition should reasonably be pushed, required its own management. By the summer of 1973, the people closest to Elvis could see what the schedule was doing. The musicians who played behind him every night, who knew his voice and his timing and the particular way he inhabited a stage when he was fully present, they could feel the difference. Something was changing. If you grew up with Elvis's music, or if someone in your family did, this channel is built for stories like the one you are watching right now. Subscribe if you want to see more of what happened behind the scenes of the most famous career in American music history. And if you have a memory connected to Elvis in Las Vegas, a show you saw, a story someone told you, a moment from that era that stayed with you, tell us in the comments. Those memories matter. We want to hear them. The Sweet Inspirations had been singing backup for Elvis since 1969. They were extraordinary musicians, gospel-trained, professional to the core, women who had spent their careers in service of music. Estelle Brown, Sylvia Shemwell, Myrna Smith. They knew Elvis. They had been close to him, in the specific way that musicians who share a stage night after night become close. On September 3, 1973, something in Elvis shifted mid-performance. Elvis made remarks towards the sweet inspirations from the stage. The remarks were hostile. The people who were there say that the quality of what Elvis was communicating in those moments was not anger exactly. It was something more disorienting than anger. Something that felt like a man whose filters had stopped working. Estelle Brown bowed her head. Elvis said towards her and towards the group, "If you don't look up, I'm going to kick your ass." 2,000 people heard it. The showroom went very quiet. Estelle Brown stood up. She was a professional. She had given years of her career to standing on that stage and giving every performance everything she had. She looked at Elvis for a moment, and then she walked off the stage. Elvis said something that the people present describe as a non-apology, the words of someone who knows they have done something they cannot immediately account for. "Sorry for any embarrassment I might have caused," he said, "but if you can't take it, get off the pot." Sylvia Shemwell walked off the stage. Another member followed. And Elvis Presley stood in the Las Vegas Hilton showroom in front of 2,000 people and looked at the spaces where his backup singers had been. 2,000 people were watching. The accounts of that evening keep returning to not the incident itself, but the moment after. The moment when Elvis Presley stood on a stage in Las Vegas with a gap in the lineup behind him and 2,000 people waiting to see what he would do. He turned back to the microphone. He sang. Not perfectly, not the way he sang in 1969 when the comeback was complete and everything felt possible, but he sang. He moved through the songs that remained on the list with the specific professionalism of someone who has done this long enough to know that the show has to end and that it has to end well, and who has enough of himself left in that moment to make it happen. The 2,000 people in the Las Vegas Hilton showroom watched him do it. This is the thing that people who were there say when they describe the rest of that evening. Not that it was transcendent, but that it was real. That something in the stripped-back quality of what remained after the incident produced a quality in the last portion of the show that the usual perfectly managed performances did not have. They saw him, not the king, not the product, the man. He closed the evening. He said goodnight. He walked off the stage. Backstage, in the dressing room after the show, Elvis sat in the particular silence of someone who has returned from somewhere and is not entirely sure what they have returned from. Elvis asked for Estelle Brown. What passed between them in that room is not fully documented. What the accounts do record is this. When Estelle Brown left the dressing room that night, she had heard what Elvis had to say, and Elvis had heard what she had to say. The next night, the sweet inspirations were back on stage. The show went on. But something had been revealed. The September 3rd incident was not, by the standards of Elvis's later years, the most extreme thing that happened on a concert stage, but it was the first time that the general public, the 2,000 people sitting in that showroom, saw it. Saw the thing underneath the performance. Saw what the medications and the schedule and the years of being Elvis Presley were doing to the person inside the legend. When the layer disappeared, what remained was the man, with all his gifts and all his damage. The Las Vegas Hilton residencies ended in December of 1976. Elvis performed his last Vegas show on December 12th. He would be dead 8 months later. The September 3rd incident has been written about and argued over for 50 years. The people who were in that showroom tend to describe the evening differently from how it's usually told. They tend to describe it as the most honest performance they ever saw from him. Not the best, but the most honest, the performance in which the distance between the man and what was happening to the man was shortest. Elvis Presley was 40 years old in the fall of 1973. He had been famous for 18 years. He had given his voice to more people in more rooms than almost anyone alive. By September of 1973, the giving was costing more than it used to. He was a man who made a mistake and then turned back to the microphone and finished the show. That is the story. Not the fall, the return, not the crack, the performance that followed it. A man who never, not once in 20 years, left a stage with the show unfinished, even on the nights when it cost him everything he had left. If this is the kind of Elvis history you want to keep watching, the real history,